Hello, welcome to the show. My name is Drew McDougall, and I will be talking to you about pop culture in this segment of the show, which brings me to our music section. Big Gigantic recently dropped a new album. Let's take a listen. That song was entitled Burning Love by Big Gigantic. Go check it out on his website and give it a download. The next segment of our show will be about what's new to Netflix. I recently saw the new show Down to Earth, hosted by Zac Efron. It's my new favorite watch. He tackles issues of sustainability and global warming. It piques my interest on sustainable topics, and he has other bits about traveling the world. I watched the entire season, and it's my new favorite show at the moment. I've noticed a new trend recently, and I can say I'm all about it. It seems to be a new exploration of realism, and it has a lot to do with stage actors playing themselves. It reminds me of another show on Netflix with Rob Schneider called The Real Rob, where Rob Schneider is playing Rob Schneider, and it's filmed as a sitcom series, and it resembles a stage drama. However, he's playing himself. I love this trend, and I view it as an exploration of realism. It reminds me of some of the work I've done. In my film Glendale, I was playing pretty much myself, and it was almost a real documentary style of my life. I was documenting my life as it was happening, but with exceptional cinematography to avoid a documentary look and to make it look like a stage drama. However, it was actually me playing myself, doing my real life tasks. And I think this new wave of realism amongst stage actors, it's sort of born out of a certain mental health practice. As a director, I run into issues of how much psychological trauma am I putting my actors through, and thus putting my audience through. I'm really not trying to have my actors walk away psychologically traumatized, or my audience. So, and some of that trauma seems to come from the actors taking on another person, or comes from being on screen, getting a big name and becoming famous to a giant audience, and all of the audience members remembers you as your staged character. I think this recent trend in exploring realism, the fine line between real life films presented as a stage drama and documentary, I think that's an awesome realm to explore, and it comes off as a sort of mental health practice. And we all love our celebrities, and we all want them to be healthy and mentally healthy, and I think it's an excellent practice, and I would like to commend them. The next segment of the show, I'll talk to you about a visual artist. His name is Eddie Martinez, and in of June 2020 he came out with a new painting. The characters are depicted. I loved the abstractions and how they look, how it's not necessarily photorealism, and it looks as though the characters are making a painting themselves. So it's a painting that is about artists making a painting. And I love the self-reflexivity and this style and his advanced use of color palette. I think the contrasty lines and the use of contrasted colors makes the piece well-rounded. In the next segment, we'll be talking to you about filling the Hello. I want to talk to you guys about the void of life. I'm not talking about the 2016 film. I'm talking more about an emptiness, about humanity. We experience it our entire lives. Kind of feels like hunger. Experienced it last night. I was right after I was done eating, so I was already full, but I felt like a certain emptiness. I was like, I'm not hungry, but I feel like empty. And it's the void, and we all feel it. We always, it's always something, isn't it? It's always not enough money, or I don't go on enough vacations, or my car's not nice enough, or it's too broken down, or it's your family, or it's the government, or it's the police, or it's your job, the poor and the wealthy. You know, maybe you hear that statement about the wealthy always saying, like, you know, you can have all the money in the world, but you can't buy happiness. You fill your life with things that are worthwhile, meaningful to you, your life becomes more meaningful. Usually what I do to fill my void, I fill it with a lot of exercise. I go on a lot of runs and I do a lot of cardio. Like, once you recognize it, it's hard to unrecognize. So if you can get your mind off of it, you can kind of escape it, which is where I feel like if I exercise, it's a healthier way to avoid it as opposed to overeating. Because I know a lot of people, when they get that weird sense of unfulfillment, like, they just sit there and overeat. Because I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation where you've had a giant meal and you're not full. It's like, what is that? It's like you're bloated, you had like enough to feed like 4 people, and you're not full. It's like, what is that? That's what I describe as, I think a lot of American consumerism is brought on by the unsatisfaction of the void. And I think a lot of it has to do with uncompleted tasks. Remember when you're in school, or if you're in school right now and you have like a homework assignment or a task to do at work, and like sometimes you can't like take your break at work, or you can't go to sleep, or you can't talk to your friends until you complete this task. And then once that task is completed, it's like 1,000 pounds is lifted off your chest, and you're liberated to go do whatever you want. It's kind of like growing your own vegetable garden versus going to the store for vegetables. It's like, if you grow your own vegetables, you had to sit there, you had to till the dirt, you had to water it, you had to fertilize it, you had to weed out all of the grass before you have good soil, and then you had to till the dirt, get something that can hold a seed. You have to water the dirt, and then you have to plant the seeds, and then you have to bury the seeds, water it some more, and then wait for like several months. And then you have to water every single day, and then eventually your crops will take. And sometimes you're hungry that entire time, you're eating poorly because you're banking on your crops. And once they start to grow, and then you have a whole field of crops, and then all of a sudden your hunger problem is solved, and you can eat your vegetables that you grew yourself. And that's a whole process, and that's a certain satisfaction that I think conquers the void of life. Because you created that entire thing, only you were to blame. I mean, I guess you're at the expense of Mother Nature at some point, if it freezes and your crop dies, versus using money and capital to go to a grocery store to buy your food. You might have worked really hard for that money, and the people in the store might have worked really hard to keep the store running and to deliver vegetables, but at the end of the day, the food that you're eating, you didn't create yourself, you didn't work hard, you didn't see the process to its completion. You kind of just catch the end of it, and it comes in the form of trade. And I guess it fills your stomach. And I guess the reason we have stuff like that is because, say you're a strawberry farmer or a tomato farmer, and you grow huge fields of tomatoes. At some point, that is way too much tomato for one man to handle. So it's like, okay, you can just be filthy full of tomatoes, or you could trade one of those fields for cash or gold or whatever, and other people could eat the tomatoes, because at some point you can't even eat all those tomatoes. They're just going to sit there and rot at some point. So that way, other people, you can share the wealth or the crop, and other people can benefit from your work, and society can function. And then you can go trade your money for other stuff you might need. So I think there's a lot to farming and filling the void. And I think sometimes creating artwork, if I'm going to sit down and create a painting or a drawing, it takes a lot of brain activity to do a painting, or to do one well at least. And I think when you engage your brain to such a level, and you get lost while you're in the creation process, I think that fills a void. Is it just the act of painting, or is it making good art that fills the void? And I always believe it's quality art, because if you're going to sit down and doodle in a coloring book, I don't think that's nearly as fulfilling as sitting down on a blank canvas with a whole set of paints, because there's a whole endless possibility, and it allows you to create your own future in a sense. And so it's kind of how you do your art, and it's kind of if you want to sit down and write a song, and get lost in the music, I think that fills a certain void that I don't think overeating can fulfill, or even working out. Working out and eating have an interesting correlation, but the void it's a huge thing that we have to deal with every single day. Like right now, just me talking about it, just getting lost in this conversation, I feel like I managed to get over my void, or at least briefly. But it's it's gonna come up again tomorrow, and I'm gonna have to fulfill it somewhere. So I guess my question is to you guys is what fulfills your void? I was going to talk about the sustainable aspects of the juice. You may not know this, but our entire camera setup is all solar powered, meaning, these cameras that I'm shooting on are powered by solar power. Like the batteries for this microphone are all charged by solar power. And that's just one of the things that we try to showcase in this time of global warming. It's kind of interesting. I was going to talk about the technology aspect. The solar is they have interesting properties to them. A lot of people have them wired up to their house, and usually, but have a grid setup versus we go with an off-grid setup. This allows us to be a little bit more mobile and collect the power that we are generating, because it's mostly a production setup for me, which is interesting because you run into certain cooling aspects of the technology, because there are technology used to fight global warming and reduce carbon emission, which is a greenhouse gas which heats up in our atmosphere. So this technology generates electricity without generating carbon, which is why it's considered healthy and sustainable and environmentally friendly. Which is interesting because you catch on to certain cooling nature of the technology. And it kind of works. Sometimes it works kind of backwards. Like I said, usually they're all wired up to the grid, and it'll power your refrigerator all day, which is kind of neat because your refrigerator is one of the few things that needs constant electricity to run during the day. Because if you notice, usually when you leave for the day, turn off your TV, turn off your lights, you have your phone with you, and for the most part, it's just clocks and your refrigerator that need electricity during the day. So it's kind of neat because when you think about a refrigerator, it does, during the day is when it's most hot, and that's when you need to keep your food the most cold, is during the day, so it doesn't rot. Obviously you need to keep it cool at night as well, but nighttime is cooler than daytime, so your refrigerator doesn't have to work as hard during nighttime to cool your food, to keep it sanitary. So it's interesting because we run it for production setup. So we have a bank of batteries that it charges, and we just siphon the power off of the battery bank, which makes this show super cool. I don't know. It's kind of like my sunglasses. Do I need them? Not necessarily. Does it make the entire show way cooler? Absolutely. So, but it's interesting. I've noticed after using them for a long time, using pure solar, one of the disadvantages of solar is you only have daytime to generate electricity, meaning they're pretty much shut off at night, and if you need electricity at night, you either just have to wait until the morning, or you have to hook up into the grid power, which is not necessarily the end of the world, but can be, considering we're talking about global warming and the end of the world. So, but it's interesting, I've noticed it completely changes your daily habits. Like, because I really only get good power on sunny days. On those days is usually when I stay inside and do all the work I needed to do for computer, like on my computer, like editing, writing scripts, writing reviews, whatever I need to do on my computer, and watching TVs or movies, which is very strange because usually on nice days are the days that you want to go outside, go on a hike, go swimming, go kayaking, go rafting, go surfing, go skateboarding, go on a run, go play tennis or go play another sport, or task get moved to cloudy days. So because I don't have enough electricity, which is kind of opposite, because usually when it's cold and cloudy are the days you want to stay in, watch movies, sit on your computer, lounge around, do nothing at your house. And on sunny days are the days you want to be active and go outdoors and do fun things. But it's the opposite when you have solar, because the only days you have power are the only days that are sunny. So if you want to get serious work done, you just stay indoors on sunny, nice sunny days, and on snowy, rainy, cloudy days are the days that you don't have power. So it makes sense for you to go on a hike and go play tennis and go rafting. And it's like you can't really go rafting or play tennis when it's raining or snowing. So, and usually you want to stay inside on those days, but you don't have power. So then you have to switch back over to the grid. And, I've noticed a lot of the reason why, grid power suppliers come from power supplying factories, and you start to realize why they do so much coal burning. And that's because, it's kind of like if you start a roaring fire, that fire, if you keep it roaring, it'll roar through the night, through bad weather, through the snow, through rain. So, and really those are the days that you need the most power, because on snowy and rainy days you don't want to go outside, you want to sit inside. But if you don't have any power, what are you going to do? Just sit there in the dark twiddling your thumbs? Like, you can't do anything without your lights on. Granted, I can usually get enough power to run the lights on cloudy days, but it's hard to run my television on cloudy days or my computer. So usually I switch back to grid on cloudy days, which, there's a lot of things about the grid and coal burning that are unsustainable. So it's rather peculiar. It's a peculiar thing because you start to miss out on fun things because all your friends are like, hey, let's go on a hike, and you're like, no, I got stuff I need to do, and they're like, why, it's such a nice day, and it's like, well, because I can't work on cloudy days. And then when you call them on cloudy days, you're like, yo, let's go on a hike. You're like, yo, it's freezing out. Are you crazy? Like, I'm not going outside today. So it throws a peculiar social aspect to it that I wasn't necessarily expecting when I first delved into solar technology. And it's kind of interesting. You gotta wonder why the fossil fuel industry dominates the automobile industry so much, and it's because think about when you need your car to work. It's like you need your car to work specifically in poor weather conditions. When it's raining, you always run to your car and you sit in your drive space. And like when it's snowing, you need your car to work. Usually a lot of people stay inside on snowy days. But that being said, if you're out and about on a snowy day, you need your car to work, and you need your heater to work. Unless you're just in total parka mode, or you live in a place where it doesn't snow. So, that's where I've noticed Tesla, if you notice, all the electric cars go really well with solar. Because it is kind of interesting because, as far as Los Angeles goes, they're always sitting in traffic for hours on end in the middle of the hot heat. So they can't move anywhere that's gridlocked, and they're just sitting there polluting. So you can see where electric cars make a lot more sense in really warm climates, because when there's just thousands of people crowded on a highway and they're all just sitting there breathing each other's CO2 and their poisonous toxic gases from their cars, like, you gotta wonder when people start to go crazy and they're just sit there and stuck and breathing all these fumes, and it's like, that's terrible. It's really not a fun thing to do. So, electric cars and like the Tesla makes a lot of sense, because if you're gonna have to sit in traffic and you have an electric car, you're not spewing toxic gases into your fellow citizen's face. And if you have solar on your electric car, you can charge your car pretty well if it's sunny out. Like I said, it's not like LA really has traffic issues at night. Like, how many rush hour traffic do you have to deal with in middle of at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.? Like, the roads are usually clear at night.